What is up, metalheads? In today's video, I kind of wanted to address something that I hear a little too often, basically about airbrush paints. So when people discuss airbrush paints, or when there's a sale on a website for a company such as Badger Airbrush and such, and they say, hey, we have a sale on our paints, one of the most common things I hear people say is, oh, but I don't own an airbrush. And I'm here to tell you that you can rest easy, because you in fact can still use airbrush paints by hand. The only difference between a regular acrylic model paint and a airbrush paint is that the airbrush paints are thinner, because the objective is to be able to pretty much use them straight out of the bottle into your airbrush and shoot with them. Now, bear in mind, there are different companies out there that make airbrush paint, and so some are a little bit thicker than others, and so more times than not you'll still have to thin them down for your airbrush in order to make sure that they don't get gunked, or maybe because you want to steadily layer on your color or do gradients and what have you, and that's totally fine. That's standard, right? And then companies, best ones out there, it's all personal preference, so that part's up to you. But real quick, just so that you can see the difference, I will show you an acrylic paint and an airbrush paint in similar colors, but about from the same company. But it's just so that you see what it's like straight out of the bottle, and so that you can see that they are still usable paints with a brush. And just real quick, I wanted to mention also that there are some people that actually prefer to use airbrush paints over regular acrylic paints, because they feel that they have more control over the paint, over the color when they're using it, because it's thinner straight out of the bottle. So that's just something to think about also. So the next time that you see that there's a website or a company, your favorite company, that sits there and says, hey, we have a sale on our airbrush paints, then go ahead and grab it. Because, for example, when Badger sits there and they're at a convention, they usually do wholesale pricing. So when they have their set of paints that are on sale, the bottles are that big, and it breaks down to about $1 and change a piece, and that's a lot of paint. So don't miss out on an opportunity to save money with paints that you could still use. So let's take a look at those paints right now, shall we? Okay, so here we have a few different paints that are basically similar colors. They're all within the brown range, but it's just so that you see the difference between an airbrush paint and a regular model acrylic. So I have here Secret Weapon and Red Rust. They're a great paint, so you should totally check them out, secretweaponminiatures.com. And this one comes out kind of in between. That's another reason why I wanted to show you them, is because they come out a little in between in the bottle. They're not too thick, they're not too thin. So just so that you can see it spread around, there you go. There's Secret Weapon. I'll even give you a closer look so that you can see. And that's Red Rust. Really nice color. If you like weathering colors, Secret Weapon makes great stuff. And here's a regular acrylic, charred brown, game color. I've had this one for a while. This one will definitely be thicker than Secret Weapon. And here's the charred brown. You got to really shake that one well too, but this is just so that you see it's a little thicker in consistency when you move it around, just so that you see. And there's a regular acrylic. Now we're going to look at an airbrush paint, and here's charred brown, but in airbrush. So you're going to see that this one's thinner. You can even hear it when you shake it. You can even hear that it's a thinner liquid. So you want to be careful when you squeeze it out of the bottle, because it's going to come out fast because it's thin. And you see here, it easily came right out of the bottle. I hardly even touched it. I'm cleaning the brush, and then you see here that the consistency is thinner. So you see, I'm not using an airbrush, I'm using an actual brush, and it works just as well. It's just thinner. Again, there are people who tend to prefer the airbrush paints over regular acrylic, because they come out thinner and it gives them more control over the color. So just something to think about. And then here's Secret Weapon, which is kind of the in-between. Not too thick, not too thin. It's right in the middle there. Alright? So hopefully that helped you see the difference and helped you to see that you can in fact use these paints by hand. But don't be afraid still to ask questions if you'd like. You can ask questions in the comments below, or you can feel free to email us at mhmpropainting@gmail.com. That's not a problem. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out Metalhead Minis on the web at www.metalheadminis.com. Stay crispy and milk. Have yourselves a great day.